Good morning. Thank you for joining us, business owners, business professionals, chamber members. My name is Kevin O'Malley, your Wilsonville Chamber of Commerce CEO. Happy to lead this multi-chamber event today. Go around the room and do a quick introduction alphabetically, starting with C for Canby.
Hi there, folks. This is Kyle Lang, the Executive Director over at the Canby Area Chamber.
Wonderful. Tiger Chamber.
Hi, I'm Debbie Mollahan, CEO of the Tiger Chamber.
Great. Tualatin Chamber.
Good morning. It's Linda Moholt with the Tualatin Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks, everyone. We're great opportunity here in the South Metro area to bring our chambers together and talk about PPP loan forgiveness and what's up next. And we're proud to bring back again who started this whole process a few months ago that seems like a year ago. Chris Eyler from US Chamber, our Northwest representative. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, thank you, Kevin, and thank you to the Canby, Tualatin, and Tiger Chambers as well. U.S. Chamber very much appreciates your partnership. Our partnerships with our state and local chambers members are some of our most important partnerships. You all truly are doing most of the work right now as far as informing your members and helping us keep local chambers and local businesses up to date on all of the federal programs that are out there to help businesses through this crisis. So thank you for that support and thank you for your guidance. We could not do what we do without you. Again, my name is Chris Eyler. I'm the U.S. Chamber's Executive Director for the Northwest region. And as Kevin indicated, I spoke with a number of you earlier on in the crisis where we walked through all of the programs created under the CARES Act to assist businesses keep their doors open and keep paying their employees throughout the crisis. The most significant of the programs created by the CARES Act was the Paycheck Protection Program. Just as a reminder, this is a loan program that provides loans to help businesses keep their employees paid and on payroll during the crisis. Those loans would convert to a forgiven grant so long as the loan proceeds, 75% of eligible loan proceeds are dedicated to payroll expenses and the remaining 25% for rent, mortgage interest, and utility payments. And FTEs any FTEs let go during a period of time at the beginning of the year are restored by June 30th and have their salary restored by June 30th. Any amount that does not qualify for forgiveness does convert to a loan that is due in 2 years at an interest rate of 1%. The key thing to remember, though, is this is a loan that is obtained through a bank. It's backed up by the federal government, but you obtain the loan through the bank. And then you apply for loan forgiveness by going back to the lender you obtained the loan from. As of Friday, May 30th, over nearly 4.5 million businesses had received PPP loans totaling $510 billion. In Oregon, 57,304 loans had been approved totaling $6.7 billion. One key thing I want to point out here is that despite the feeding frenzy at the outset of the creation of the PPP, Congress has provided additional is a little over $100 billion in the PPP account. So if you are still looking for assistance and have not yet applied for a Paycheck Protection Program loan, there is still funding available if you need to do so. So today, what we're going to talk about is loan forgiveness under the Paycheck Protection Program. In the middle of May, the Department of Treasury issued guidance, instructions, and a worksheet for businesses to use in applying for loan forgiveness. This worksheet and instructions totaled about 11 pages, which is longer than the actual loan application. And admittedly, it's a bit confusing and looks an awful lot like a tax document. So what we have done today, or what I'm going to do today, is give you a fairly broad overview of the basics of requesting loan forgiveness to assist you to hope so that you can better understand what you need to do. The questions we're going to answer are: how much of my Paycheck Protection Program loan will be forgiven? What are the repayment terms for any loan amounts not forgiven? And what are the record keeping requirements that you need to make sure that you're following so that you can back up all of the information you include in your loan forgiveness application. So we view, in looking at the documents and guidance issued by Treasury, we view loan forgiveness as a 3-step process. First, you have to determine the maximum amount of possible loan forgiveness based on your expenditures during the 8 weeks after the loan is made. Next, you need to determine the amount, if any, by which the maximum loan forgiveness will be reduced. This is going to be based on the level of the number of FTEs you have on staff compared to a certain point in time, and whether you reduce salaries during that period. And then finally, you have to apply what's known as the 75% rule that requires 75% of all eligible loan forgiveness expenses to go towards payroll costs. So the first step, as I said, is to determine the maximum amount of possible loan forgiveness. And this in itself is actually a 2-step process. First, you need to calculate the expenses that will qualify for loan forgiveness. And under the Paycheck Protection Program, eligible expenses that are eligible for loan forgiveness are payroll expenses plus certain specified non-payroll expenses. When you're talking about the payroll expenses that you include in this calculation, think of the types of things that you used when you made your initial loan request. Wages and certain other non-wage benefits go into the payroll calculation. Plus, then you need to add in the non-payroll expenses, and these are mortgage interest payments, renter lease payments, and utility payments related to the business. Next, you need to determine the 8-week period that you're going to calculate these expenses from. During the course of the Paycheck Protection Program, the Department of Treasury issued additional guidance that it broke out what qualifies as that 8-week period, and this has admittedly created some confusion for some businesses. There are basically 2 8-week periods that you can choose from. You can choose 8 weeks from the first day that you received Paycheck Protection Program loan proceeds, or you could start that 8-week period, or if you are a business that pays on a biweekly or more frequent payroll schedule, you can start that 8-week period on the first day of the first pay period after you received your Paycheck Protection Program loan proceeds. Keep in mind that the day that you receive the money in your account from the bank counts as the first day when you're determining the 8-week period, or the first day when you measure when the first day of the next pay period begins. Next, after you've made that calculation, you need to determine the amount, if any, by which that maximum loan forgiveness will be reduced. And again, this is based on whether you reduce salaries by more than 25% during the 8-week period, or whether that you've reduced FTEs during that period. As far as salaries go, for employees who earned $100,000 or less in 2019 or were not employed by you in 2019, your loan forgiveness will be reduced for each employee whose average pay during the 8-week period is less than 75% of their average pay from a period January 1st to March 31st of 2020. That is the period that they're going to compare wages to. If you've reduced pay, the amount of forgiveness will be reduced proportionally to the amount that you've reduced it if it's greater than 25%. Next, you need to determine, you need to ask yourself, did you reduce the average number of employees? And again, here they will look at the average number of employees you have during that 8-week period, and they will compare it to a reference point in time, which you get to choose. There are 3 separate reference points that you can choose which one you want to compare that to. The first is February 15th to June 30th, 2019. The next is January 1st to February 29th, 2020. Or if you are a seasonal employer, you could choose a consecutive 12-week period between May 1st and September 15th, 2019 to compare your average employee level during the 8-week period too. If you have fewer employees during the 8-week period as compared to any of these 3 points in time, your loan forgiveness will be reduced. Now, it's important to remember there are some exceptions. First, Congress recognizes that there are a number of businesses that are struggling to hire employees back. We've heard this from a number of businesses that their employees are simply not wanting to come back. So they have created an exception. If the borrower has made a good faith written offer to rehire the employee during the 8-week period and the employee rejected that, then that will not count against the business as far as a reduction in loan forgiveness. Likewise, if the employee was fired for cause, voluntarily resigned, or voluntarily requested a reduction in hours, that also will not count against the business when it comes to a reduction in loan forgiveness. Additionally, there is a safe harbor. You can, for employees who've had their wages reduced or employees who've been let go, the business can restore those wages, and that will not count against them as far as reduction in loan forgiveness. And likewise, if an employee or if the FTE count is restored by June 30th, that will also prevent any loan forgiveness under this calculation. The final step, as I mentioned earlier, is to apply the 75% rule, that 75% of the proceeds that are eligible to be forgiven are dedicated to payroll. So this calculation is basically you add up the eligible payroll expenses that you've paid employees during that 8-week period. You divide it by 0.75, and that gives you the maximum amount of eligible loan proceeds that can be forgiven. So think of it this way: if you had $75,000 in payroll expenses during the 8-week period, you divide that by 0.75, that equals $100,000. That $100,000 is the maximum amount of loan forgiveness you can receive under the Paycheck Protection Program. Once you've completed that calculation, you will be able to determine the amount of loan forgiveness that you will receive under the Paycheck Protection Program, and this is going to be equal to the smallest of the following: your entire Paycheck Protection Program loan. This is the ideal situation. This is what you hope to have, or the maximum loan forgiveness amount from step 1 less any reductions from step 2. Or 3, the maximum loan forgiveness amount where the eligible payroll expenses equal or exceed 75% of the total forgiveness. Again, the hope here is that you can get the entire Paycheck Protection Program loan forgiven. Now, for a variety of reasons, a number of businesses are going to find that not all of their Paycheck Protection Program loan will be forgiven. For those amounts that are not forgiven, it converts to a loan that is a 1% loan that will be due in 2 years, and the first payment is deferred for 6 months until 6 months after the date of disbursement. And there are no prepayment penalties or fees if the business chooses to repay that amount ahead of schedule. As far as record keeping requirements, you're going to want to make sure that you're keeping as many records as possible to back up all of the numbers that you put in your loan forgiveness application. You're going to want to keep documents backing up what you paid your employees during the 8-week period, the number of FTEs you have on staff during that period of time, as well as backing up the amount of non-payroll expenses that you are asking forgiveness for. For payroll documents, you're going to want to keep bank account statements or third-party payroll service provider records, documenting what you paid your employees. You're going to want to keep tax forms or equivalent third-party payroll service records for that 8-week period, including payroll tax filings, typically your Form 941, as well as any state quarterly wage reporting and unemployment insurance tax filings. You're also going to want to make sure you keep track of any canceled checks and account statements related to payroll. For full-time employee, to keep track of your number of employees, your number of FTEs. Again, you're going to want to keep any kind of documentation showing that the number of FTEs during the 8-week period compared to the reference period in step 2. And for non-payroll expenses, you're going to want to keep mortgage interest payment, your statements of mortgage interest, amortization schedules, canceled checks. You're going to want to have records of your lease payments and utility payments as well. This all is, in the general course of business. These are the types of things that the government's going to look for to confirm the figures that you put in your loan forgiveness application. Now, there are a lot of conversations going on in Washington, D.C. about making some changes to the Paycheck Protection Program to give businesses more flexibility. These are changes that we are advocating for on behalf of businesses and our local chamber partners. They include extending that 8-week period from 8 weeks to 24 weeks, lowering the 75% rule to 60%, and extending the safe harbor deadline of June 30th to restore FTEs and payroll to the end of 2020. Right now, there is a bill that is moving through Congress. It passed the House of Representatives last week on a vote of 417-1 that would make these changes. However, it is still pending in the U.S. Senate. We do expect that the Senate is going to take it up and pass, but as with everything when it comes to Congress, nothing is guaranteed. So for the time being, the current law for loan forgiveness is what we just walked through, and you will want to make sure that you're following current law. Now, as Congress makes changes, assuming they make these changes, we will continue to update you and our local chamber partners. We also, on our website, have a very straightforward guide document that walks you through each of the steps we just discussed. We also have a recording that one of my colleagues in Washington, D.C. put together that goes through goes through most of what we just talked about if you need to go back and rewatch that. But again, we do have a guide document that walks you through the steps for PPP Forgiveness. It's on our website at uschamber.com/PPP Forgiveness. We will keep that updated as changes are made in the program. Likewise, we have a number of other guide documents on our website that go through a number of the other aid programs out there for small business. So in addition to the PPP, we have a guide document on the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, the Main Street Lending Program, the Employer Retention Tax Credit, and we also have guide documents on all of the paid leave programs or the paid leave requirements that were stipulated in the Phase 2 bill. So with that, I understand that all of this can be a bit confusing. I'm happy to take any questions, but again, I encourage you to go to our website and take a look at some of the documents we've put up there to help better explain the loan forgiveness process. They really help simplify a lot of what the government's put out. So with that, Kevin, I'm happy to take any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. So maybe we'll start here with our chamber folks and see if there are any questions, or I can start with the first one from the group. So let me just try and pop that one up for you. So, Lydia Tippett, I'm the business owner receiving PP for myself as a single employee. Do not have payroll documents to prove a payroll pay, but was approved for the loan, proof of salary as owner draws. Do you believe the same documentation, QuickBooks reporting of owner draws will serve as proof of payroll payments?
Yeah, I believe that should be sufficient, and we are working on a separate guide document for sole proprietors and independent contractors. Right now, the guide document we have, it's better, or it's not. It's more designed for businesses with employees, but yes, the documentation you're keeping through QuickBooks should be sufficient to back up any information you put in your loan forgiveness application.
Okay, super. Any chamber folks want to wave? If you got a question, just start in.
Hey, Chris, what do you think the likelihood of the Senate on the bill, extending it from 8 weeks to 24 weeks, dropping it to 60%?
I think it's very likely. As I said, the House passed it on a vote of 417 to 1. That is about as bipartisan as you get in these days. But that being said, we are living in strange times, and Congress, they are they're in DC, but they're also not meeting in person. So moving things, even non-controversial things, can be a lot more difficult than it otherwise would be. But that being said, every indication we're getting from Senate leadership is that they want to take this bill up and move it as quickly as possible. But just nothing is guaranteed these days. So for the time being, we have to work with what is current law. But as I said, if they make these changes, we will update all of this material to reflect those changes.
Okay.
Cool. I have another question. Nicholas DeSalvo. If an employee leaves voluntarily and we replace them with another hire, will their wages be eligible for forgiveness? Good question.
Yes, they will.
Short and good answer. That's the answer they want to hear, right? Let's see.
Even though they left voluntarily, you're still maintaining your FTE count compared to one of those points in time.
Good enough. Kyle, you got a question?
Yeah, and that extends to, I had a business ask the question, if we've lost somebody or somebody's not ready to return to work, and we just bump up maybe another part-time person's hours up to full-time in order to keep that full-time ratio, that will apply for the forgiveness as well, correct?
It is based on, so
it's a hard number.
It's based on FTE count. Even though a lot of the materials that have been put out say rehiring that employee, it is based on FTE count. So it doesn't have to be the same person.
Right.
Got it.
Okay. Yep.
So can I clarify for our audience, when you say FTE, are you talking about calculated hours of full-time equivalent of headcount? So let's say somebody had 10 people at 80% of hours, so they're not full-time, they're at 80%, and they have lost staff, but they've taken those remaining staff and bumped them up to 100% of a 40-hour work week, therefore maintaining that total FTE equivalent. So when you're talking FTE, you're not talking nose count, right? You're talking
Correct.
hours of payroll.
Correct.
Okay.
And can you also reiterate how much PPP is still available for application?
So as of last Friday, $510 billion had been issued in approved loans. The total appropriation was $649 billion. So there's about $130 billion left as of last Friday.
Thank you.
Great. Got another question? Jeremy.
Hey, Kevin,
yes.
can the audience see our calculator, our PPP calculator, or is that a private comment?
That was a private comment. So the best thing is if you cut and paste that, you can put it right in your feed of your Facebook page, and everybody would get it.
So on Facebook? Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Received my PPP April 27th. My 8 weeks is up June 8th. Does this form need to be filled out by June 8th?
I would need to go back and look at the form, but I don't think it has to be filled out by June 8th, but I need to go back and look through the 11-page instructions to see what the deadline is for that.
Okay. Another question.
PPP April 27th. My 8 weeks is up June 8th. Does this form need to be filled out by June 8th?
Not sure where that happened.
You know,
Okay, so Linda, can you mute it? I think that's gotta mute.
it has to be filled out by June 8th.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. So what's the latest ruling on bonuses? I've heard different things. Does it count towards salaries?
So this is one of those things where if you would, in the normal course of the year, issue bonuses during this period of time, you should be fine to include that in the calculation. However, if you're trying to front load something that you would do at the end of the year into the 8-week period, that's going to look suspicious, and that might not raise some red flags and not be forgivable.
Okay.
So if you're giving bonuses during the spring, typically, and that's part of the wages you pay, you should be fine. But if it's something you typically do in December and all of a sudden you're trying to move it to the spring, that could create some problems for you.
Okay. Another question. Clarify, which FTE number are we using? My understanding that we need to match the FTE that we had before COVID business closure. Is that correct?
Yeah. So let me go back to my screen and I'll bring that slide up again. Oops. Okay. So you get to compare it to one of 3 points in time. And this is because you may or may not have been in business the prior year, or you may be a seasonal employer. So if you were in business last year, you can compare it to the point in time, February 15th to June 30th of 2019. Say you weren't in business last year, you can compare your FTE count to January 1st to February 29th of 2020. And if you're a seasonal employer, a lot of businesses, particularly in the Northwest, most of their employment is in the spring and summer months. You can choose a consecutive 12-week period between May 1st and September 15th, 2019 to compare that count to.
Okay. All righty. Kyle's got a question.
Yeah, actually kind of a two-part. So within the comparison of those FTE equivalents, you can choose the smaller of those ranges, right? If you run reports for both those moments in time, you can choose the smaller of the two, is something I heard on a previous call.
I believe so. I'll have to double check the guidance that Treasury issued. Okay.
And then that just came as a result of your last answer. But my question had been, I have some restaurateurs who are, they don't have to worry about the claimed tips portion using PPP funds to get their employees backed up to the claimed tips portion of their pay. Correct? It's just the hourly wage that they need to make sure that their servers and bartenders and whatnot are being restored to.
I'll put this on my list of things to get back to you on.
Yeah, because they claim their tips, and that is taxable income, and then that shows on their tax forms, and so there was some confusion as to, is the employer responsible for meeting that gap between what I pay them hourly, what they claim in their tips, which then obviously puts them in a whole different hourly pay.
I understand what you're saying. I just need to.
Okay.
Real good questions. Okay. Any other questions right now on PPP? Okay. So in the crystal ball, Chris, looking forward on a potential phase 4 stimulus package for business. Is there any update from US Chamber on kind of what you're asking for and what might happen?
So on the phase 4, we do expect that Congress is going to take up some type of package by July 4th. The House of Representatives, before the Memorial Day recess, did pass what they refer to as the HEROES Act. This is a $3 trillion package, $1 trillion of which would go to state and local governments. It makes a lot of these changes to the PPP that we want to see. It includes another round of payments to individuals of a $1,200 check. And it provides a lot more funding for testing, hospitals, and medical providers. This is largely seen as Speaker Pelosi and House Democrats' opening offer in the whole phase 4 negotiation. We have not seen what Senator McConnell and House or Senate Republicans want to do yet. We do expect to see some language from Senate Republicans as far as what they view as their offer in this negotiation, maybe later this week or early next week. But the one thing that Senator McConnell has been very clear about is that he is not going to allow anything to move through the Senate that does not include liability protections for businesses. As far as what the U.S. Chamber is going to advocate for, we are very concerned about providing liability protections for businesses. This is something that a lot of businesses of all sizes are very concerned about. Businesses are concerned that as the economy reopens, as they reopen their businesses, they may be targeted by opportunistic trial attorneys with unfair and opportunistic lawsuits. You can kind of bunch the types of lawsuits into 4 categories: exposure litigation, products liability litigation, medical liability, and securities litigation. The 2 that are going to be of most concern to small businesses are exposure lawsuits and products liability lawsuits. Exposure lawsuits, if you're a business, there's a concern that employees and customers may claim that they were exposed to coronavirus at your place of business and sue you. Products liability, this is going to apply to a lot of the businesses that produce PPE, masks, protective face guards, protective gowns, and hand sanitizer, as well as a lot of businesses that retooled their own production facilities to fill the gaps. So what we are asking for here, it's getting mischaracterized a lot in the press. The press will characterize it as we're asking for blanket immunity from everything. That is not what we're asking for. What we are asking for are temporary protections that are targeted at claims arising from coronavirus. And what we're asking for is a safe harbor. So if a business is following best practices, following or making a good faith effort to follow public health guidance issued by CDC, OSHA, and state public health officials, if they're making that good faith effort, they should be shielded from any kind of litigation arising from coronavirus. Now, if a business is engaging in willful misconduct or gross negligence, they should not be able to avail themselves of these protections. But given all of the uncertainty around the crisis, given the fact that we continue to learn new things about how the virus is transmitted, it's important, if we're going to get businesses to reopen, that they have some certainty that they're not going to be targeted for litigation arising from the crisis.
Yep. Great question. Linda.
I'd like to just thank you, Chris. This is probably the thing that I'm hearing from businesses about. A couple of great restaurants in town that we would expect would be open by now. They're just waiting until they get some assurance that they will not be targeted and lose everything that they have. So thank you. I think this is critical.
And thank you, Linda. And one of the other things, in addition to providing liability protections for businesses that we're going to be looking to do in the phase 4 bill is there are going to be a number of even as we reopen the economy, even as businesses are again able to welcome customers into their facilities, a lot of businesses, restaurants, bars, theaters, a lot of businesses aren't going to be profitable because they can't do the volume of business that they otherwise could. So Congress is really going to have to take a look at providing some type of bridge program to assist these businesses until they can again, serve the number of patrons they did before the crisis. Otherwise, we're going to see a lot of businesses go out of business if they don't get assistance to keep their doors open until they can have as many patrons as they used to.
Chris, one question for those who are fans of Chamber. I may have missed it, but will there be assistance to Chambers of Commerce, do you think, in phase 4?
We are still working on that. As you all are well aware, the Paycheck Protection Program is not open to 501c6 nonprofits, which are chambers of commerce. We have been working tirelessly to get Congress to open PPP up to 501c6s. We even sent a letter to Capitol Hill signed on by over 3,000 chambers of commerce. That is actually a record as far as our sign-on letters go. I will say our message is being heard by congressional leadership. In the HEROES Act, which is the Phase 4 bill that House Democrats passed before Memorial Day, they did expand PPP to 501c6s. Our hope is that when the Senate introduces their bill and whatever is agreed to by both the House and Senate, that we will be able to open up PPP to 501c6s. But the key thing here is that congressional leadership is hearing our message. When you talk to members of Congress, I think all of the chambers that I speak to in the Northwest, particularly the ones in Oregon and Washington, when they have spoken with their congressional delegation, no member of Congress has told them that they're opposed to this. So our message is getting through. Things look good in terms of expanding this to chambers, but again, nothing is guaranteed. We're just going to have to keep hammering away until we see it signed into law.
Fair enough. Thanks, Chris. Other questions from regarding either PPP or phase 4 from our chamber execs? All right, we got, this is fantastic. You mentioned that there was a video done by another on the slides. Are your slides available if at all, the ones from today, or how's that?
So he uses the exact same slides I use.
Okay.
It is on our website.
Got it.
uschamber.com/PPP Forgiveness.
Got it.
That is also the web address you go to download our document that walks you through the process.
Super.
And that document is pretty much, we base the PowerPoint slides off of that document. So
it's got the same information. Perfect. We put that out to everybody earlier, and individual execs can follow up with their members. So in remaining just a couple minutes, maybe we can take a chance just to give a quick announcement option for our chambers. Kyle from Canby, what's happening? Want to make any announcements about what's going on the rest of the month, or in general, any?
Yeah,
the group.
We're starting to be optimistic about moving into phase 2, and we're looking. I have a meeting on Friday for rescheduling our Canby Employment Expo, our hiring event for local businesses and job seekers. And so stay tuned. Hopefully we will have a date coming to get folks back out there and get them employed and get them working.
Excellent. Tiger, Debbie?
A couple things. One is we are partnering with Wilsonville Chamber on a virtual speed networking next Thursday. And this is not in a Zoom platform. I have heard people have been concerned about how's that going to work. We're using software that Kevin found called, I think it's called Remo is the correct pronunciation. But you'll actually be in a room with your avatar, with your LinkedIn profile attached, and you can move around to tables, and you can actually physically talk to people one-on-one. And so it will behave like a normal speed networking that you've been used to in a physical environment, but it's going to be virtual. And you can find more information about that on both the Tiger Chamber and the Wilsonville Chamber's websites. The other thing is Washington County just entered phase 1 this last Monday. And so for businesses that are in those phase 1 sectors that are looking for some, just additional help and insight into what they can and cannot do, There are a series of webinars as well as slide decks available off the Tiger Chamber website as well. You can hit that off of our main page. We have businesses that are actually using those recorded webinars as employee training. So those sectors that we covered were restaurant, retail, personal services, and then we also looked at professional services, which technically many of those are not until phase 2. So we partnered with Washington County and the city of Tigard, and so we got great public health are the ones that put together that slide deck, so it's really, really good.
Awesome.
So great resource for business, readily available to anybody that wants it.
Cool. Linda.
Good morning again. I wanted to thank Debbie for your information on those webinars. It's fantastic. I would highly recommend that any chamber member or other business take a look at that. Great information and well presented. Also, we missed being a part of that speed networking event. I'd encourage all of the Tualatin area businesses to think about joining that group. It looks like a lot of fun. The final thing I just wanted to mention is that Washington County has taken a portion of their CARES funding and is putting together 4 different resource centers in the county that would be a business recovery centers. One in Hillsborough, one in Forest Grove with the Adelante Mujeres group, and one in Beaverton, and then one in Tualatin. These will be serving Washington County businesses. We will be looking at the south end of the county, so the south end of Tigard, Sherwood, Wilsonville, Tualatin. The office will be in our office. We'll hire dedicated staff for this. And the real purpose of it is truly to embrace all businesses in the county. We'll have somebody doing outreach to provide multiple language translation services to make sure that every business understands the opportunities that are available, how they can overcome challenges and move forward into recovery. It's a huge opportunity for our end of the county, and we're really proud of Washington County for stepping up and dedicating these funds. So it's a collaboration between all of us. It's not a quote Tualatin Chamber Center. It is a full collaboration for all businesses in our end of the county. So huge opportunity, and it opened June 1st. So I'm busy scrambling. We have a website up. We have a job description now. We have a press release. We are in full motion, move ahead. So looking forward to working with businesses.
Great news, Linda. Thanks for the update. As you can tell, these announcements are about your chambers, supporting you as members and overall the greater good and prosperity of the business community. Sonia had a question here. Will this video be available for replay on demand? It is streaming right now to all the chambers Facebook pages, and within about 5 minutes after we shut down, it will be all recorded and live for you there. One point of announcement: we have heard from a number of our business community that no surprise, this is kind of a stressful time. It has been. So we're going to begin a Let's Talk Tuesday, which will be the last Tuesday of the month, where we're going to meet. We'll be starting this month on the 30th. It'll be at Vanguard. It's an opportunity, pre-registration for up to 25 folks. And it's really a relaxed way to kind of share what's going on, share some potential concerns among your peers. And then, of course, as Chamber, will quietly be there, that if there are some resources that you need, we all try to promote all the resources, but realistically, not all our members always are able to read our newsletters or our website. Yeah. And if there's a unique need, we're there to try and help. So it's something that started from the ground up with a couple of our members, and we said, sounds like a good idea. And so it'll be a Let's Talk Tuesdays. We are actually, if you are, city has canceled all events like ours has in Wilsonville. We had a lot of businesses that said, hey, they want to do something. So we are, as of last Thursday, streaming full ahead to put together a 4th of July parade that will be cars only. So if you know some folks in Wilsonville and you want to join in, we'd be happy to have you and look for more details. And with that, I think we answered all our questions. We had a bunch of people get some good information. And any last comments, thoughts? We all good?
Thank you, Chris.
Chris, many
Yeah, thank you,
thanks.
Chris.
We appreciate all the work that you do here for us in the Northwest and the support of the US Chamber for all our business community. So thanks much, everybody. Peace and prosperity. Make it a good rest of the week. And your chambers are here for you. Reach out if we can do anything or you just need to talk. Right? Thank you.